And Solutions Utah is pleased to welcome our keynote speaker, Governor Spencer Cox. Governor Cox has a long track record of public service, and we've known him for quite some time, working as lieutenant governor in homelessness and now as governor. We have seen him focus on outcomes rather than output and really support some of the legislation like House Bill 298. He and his wife, Abby, just give countless hours back to our community. They live in Salt Lake City in the governor's mansion, walk City Creek Canyon, they're familiar, and just Governor Cox, we really appreciate that he's taken such a avid interest in this realm, and he even has more influence now being, the current chair of the National Governors Association, which is a big deal, and he's representing our state well. So please warmly welcome and graciously Governor Spencer Cox.
Thank you for that kind introduction. Ladies and gentlemen, it's great to see so many of you gathered here today working on this issue. I appreciate Dave hosting us. This is such a special place, and a place that's getting recognized all across the country. I just returned yesterday from a meeting of Republican governors. We were in Louisiana together, the Republican Governors Association, and this was one of the topics that I was able to speak to my colleagues about. There's a tremendous amount of interest in what's happening here in Utah and our efforts. But if I could, maybe just go back a little bit and paint a picture of why I think this matters and why I'm so grateful that you all are here, and why I believe that we're just on the verge of getting this right for the first time in our state's history. People ask me a lot, what are the biggest issues facing Utah? And I said during the last legislative session that my number one priority is housing attainability. That was my number one priority. My number two priority was homelessness and what we could do to help there. And by the way, I don't think number one excludes number two. As Wayne Niederhauser will tell you and has told all of you, that if you look at the price of housing in every state and then you look at the percentages of people who are experiencing homelessness, there is a direct correlation between a high cost and a high rate of homelessness. And so I think number one and number two are definitely related. I've shared before some of the experiences that I've had in this space and some of the great work that we've been able to do together. But as we sat down and started talking, there was something that really impacted me over the course of the past several months. And I want to thank the Price family for the kind introduction that I just got. But there was a book recommendation that Steve gave to me. He said, you have to read this book called The Least of Us by Sam Quinones. It's mostly about drugs, about fentanyl and meth, and how they came to be, the history of those drugs, how prescription companies, pharmaceutical companies used those drugs and poured those drugs out into our society and caused so much harm. And now how the cartels have taken that on, and the steady stream of fentanyl and meth that are coming into our communities and destroying our communities. It's a history of that in the United States. It also talks about the way those drugs interact with our brains and why they're so effective and so damaging at the same time. So the science behind it, but he also talks about the social impacts and of course how much not everyone who's experiencing homelessness is addicted to fentanyl and meth. That's not the message here today, but a significant amount of them are, and a significant amount of people become homeless because of addiction to fentanyl and meth. He spent a lot of time talking about the hopeful piece of this, communities where they are finding ways to change and to improve and get better. Since I read that book, I've had an opportunity to spend some time with Sam, the author of that book. and talk about the things that he's learned. He was kind enough. I made my entire team. We have a book club with my staff and cabinet members, and Sam came and talked to us. Appeared virtually to talk to us, and he's been working on some other initiatives that I'm involved with across the country as well. But there was something in that book that really stood out to me, and Sam he will tell you he's kind of left-leaning, and he talked about how his mind had been changed on several of the policy pieces that are so important in our country. And he makes the argument that we've made a huge mistake in our country, and that is that we've swung the pendulum too far on the compassion side. Now, he will say, I will say, you can never have too much compassion, okay? I want to be very clear about that. Compassion is a good thing, and it's absolutely necessary in this work. You cannot do this work without compassion. But there's this kind of mind worm that has happened that to the point where we've gotten as a society in many of our largest cities, policymakers, and some of the most compassionate people have just decided that we're not only going to show compassion, but we're actually going to help people who are suffering suffer even more than they're suffering. That we're going to keep giving them not just permission to suffer, but we're going to aid and abet them in their suffering. That there's something good about letting people die on the sidewalk as they're shooting up, and he pushes back very hard against that and says that is a huge mistake that we have made. That pendulum has swung too far, and it's time to swing it back. There is a section in that book where he's talking to someone who had experienced homelessness, who had been addicted to fentanyl and meth, and who had struggled, but had finally gotten their life together. And this person said something that I've shared before, but I'm going to share it again because it was life-changing for him. It was life-changing for me. He said, we always have this mantra that you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. As a farmer, we grew up saying that. And he says, we use that all the time in this space, and we use it as a justification to allow people to do the worst harms to themselves. You can lead them to water, but you can't make them drink. And what he said, but we make a big mistake. You can lead them to water, but you can't make them drink, but you can make that horse very thirsty. And I needed someone to make me thirsty. And the way I got thirsty was I got put in jail. And that's how I got thirsty. Someone finally held me accountable. And Sam made that argument, and I'm making that argument today, that we have to do more on the accountability side. We have to have both of these things. It is not a false choice, my friends. We can do both of those things. We can have compassion, and we should. We can do more to provide space, to provide lodging, to provide help, to provide recovery services, to provide everything that person needs. But if they choose not to do those things, then we have to hold them accountable and make them thirsty. And that's what we're attempting to do. I want to thank the legislature for their incredible work this year. I have to give a special shout out to Tyler Clancy, who's worked so hard. There are so many others, and I hate giving a bouquet to someone because that means we're leaving someone else out. But Tyler worked very closely with us. We worked very closely with him to help make this happen this year. And this is the vision, right? And this is why we asked for the funding. So there's two pieces to this. Again, we asked for more funding because we know we need more bed space. We know we have to do that. We need a place for people to go. And so we needed that additional funding. I appreciate the legislature stepping up in a big way to give us more funding than we've ever had before. The recognition that this is no longer just a city or county issue, it is a state issue, something I've been pushing for a long time. If you're homeless in Sanpete County, where I live and grew up, you don't stay in Sanpete County. Right? You come to where the services are. Mostly that's Salt Lake, but now it's other places. It's Provo, it's Ogden, it's St. George, it's Logan. It's happening everywhere. And so this is something that we all have to be involved in. So that's the first piece. We have to have that funding. The second piece, though, is we need accountability, not just for those that we're providing services, but for those of us that are providing the services. I need to be held accountable as governor of this state. Our mayors and county commissioners need to be held accountable. Our service providers need to be held accountable. If we're going to tell the taxpayers of the state of Utah that we're going to be spending your dollars, we need to be able to answer to the taxpayers of the state of Utah and let them know if what we're doing is actually working. Because if it's not actually working, then we should stop doing it. Okay? And so my commitment to the legislature is that you get to hold me accountable. And in turn, I'm going to hold all of you accountable, everyone in this space. We have to be accountable. And even if it's our job and it's our NGO and it's the best thing that we've ever done in our lives, if it's not working, then we're going to stop doing it. And we're going to do something that does work because we know that there are things that work. And that's going to be really hard. It's going to be really, really hard because some really great people are going to lose their funding. Okay? Just you have to know that this is going to happen. Okay? So either make sure what you're doing is working or figure out something else to do really quickly, and then we'll support you. But that is going to happen. That is part of what we're going to do. We're going to have to hold each other accountable because we can't keep throwing money at something and not being able to deliver any results. Okay? So those are the two major pieces of this. Now, I just want to share some things that have happened just over the past few months. We've been working very closely with the county, the city, community leaders. We now have regular enforcement between the Salt Lake City Police Department and the Utah Highway Patrol. To date, we've conducted this year 27,000 man-hours dedicated to mitigation efforts. That is abatements, drug suppression efforts on the JRT, and direct engagement. Over 9,000 referrals for services. Over 900 combined citations for criminal trespass and panhandling. Over 150 felony arrests and counting each week. Over 300 warrant arrests. Hundreds of camps cleared and dispersed, and more to come. Now, I'm really proud of some of the things that we've been able to do that we've never been able to do before. We have an extra 500 beds remaining after mandatory winter overflow period. That was a tremendous amount of work. To everybody who stepped up and said we're going to keep our beds open, thank you. We had to be able to do that. We know, though, that at an average occupancy rate of 98% plus, we have to build more and in a smart way. Those announcements are coming. Again, we now have the funding to be able to do that. We're still working on site locations and everything that is necessary as we move to a better and more sustainable model for those that are struggling right now. I know that's a lot. I know that's heavy. I know I came in a little hot. I apologize for that. But we can't just talk about the nice things anymore. We have to talk about the hard things, and we have to do the hard things. My commitment to you is that we are all in on this, okay? I'm not going anywhere. This was, I was told by many on my team that this was a huge mistake, that I shouldn't take this on. Because it's a lot of it is outside of my control, and it's a problem everywhere. It's a problem that's growing everywhere. It's traditionally been the city and county. Let the city and county deal with it. Just put the pressure on them. Don't get involved. It won't end well for you. And they're probably right. And I don't care because it's too important. Okay. These are our people, okay? These are our friends. These are our neighbors. These are our kids. They're our parents. Now, sadly, more of them are our grandparents. These are real people with real stories, and they deserve our help, but they also deserve our respect. And by treating them and holding them accountable, it shows that we do believe in them, that we do care about them, that there is something better for them. They don't get to just camp wherever they want. They don't get to make our streets and our parks miserable for the rest of us. That's not what a society that loves each other does. We don't let them do that because it's not good for them and it's not good for us. And we, the people, are going to love and care for we, the people, and we, the people, are going to hold each other accountable. Thank you for what you're doing to make this happen. You're on the side of angels. Keep up the good work.